Mr. Nathan James of Inglorious.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
Great to have you. New great album, We Will Ride, is out on Frontiers Records, and it confirms Inglorious as one of the leading bands, of today's hard rock. Strongly influenced by the past, but looking forward as well. You're on a mission, in a sense. You're taking the classic sound up to a new level and to a younger audience. So that's really tips to you. New lineup for the band in the last couple of years, but that precise identity in your music is there, remains. What's the trick, to maintain such a creative balance, despite the changes in the band? And also, the last two albums' titles are some way connected in a unique message, since they are, Ride to Nowhere and now We Will Ride.
Yeah, so thank you very much for the wonderful intro, by the way. Thank you so much. Yeah, definitely the titles were connected because I think, oddly, I didn't know at the time, but Ride to Nowhere signified the kind of end of that period of the band and that lineup. So to me, it felt right when I finished writing the song on this album, We Will Ride, that I would have to call this album We Will Ride, because it's announcing to people that Inglorious is still here. We're better than ever. We sound better. We look better. We're making better music than we ever have done. So to me, it made perfect sense to call the album We Will Ride. And the other question about keeping it sounding like Inglorious, I suppose, over the line is it always will, because we start with the same thing, and that is guitar riff. Everything starts with one guitar riff. So if I hear a riff and I feel inspired by the riff, then I can write a song about it. Apart from that, that's kind of the only thing that's changed. It's just the people that wrote the riffs this time were different. But ultimately, still, it's always one guitar riff, and whether or not I really love it, and if I love it, I'll write a song about it, and if not, then we move on to another song. So, yeah, it's always been the same. That's been the same since 5 years ago.
Cioè, questa è casa mia, questo è il mio regno, e quindi qui comando io. Chiediamolo a Nathan. So, Nathan...
Wait, one minute.
All right.
Did you just translate everything I said?
Yes, sure.
You are amazing.
Thank you. Okay.
Amazing. Wow.
We're going live in Italy, so I must do that. Sorry, but you have to be patient, okay? Thank you so much. Okay. You told us that you start from guitar riffs, but how do Inglorious songs actually are inspired? I mean, it's a democracy, or you made clear, that this is your band and you are the driving force, the undisputed boss, let's say the king of the rain, when it comes to writing songs.
I'm not the king of writing, because everyone does write, but what happens is the guys will write a riff or a song without any words and without any melodies. Then they will bring it to me, or I will write with them, and then I will decide whether or not it fits this album. Because there's some songs you write that may be great for one album, but not so much for another one. So I kind of decide, I suppose, which is the final songs for the album and what is the best way of listing the songs, etc. And I write all the lyrics and all the melodies to all the songs on every Inglorious album. So that's the same thing for all 4 albums. But yeah, this time it was kind of awesome because I had new guys with new riffs, and nothing sounded the same. You know what I mean?
Yeah. To choose the new musicians, did you make any auditions, or they were like friends, in a circle, in a sense? Because I remember they were friends in the very first place, but it didn't go very well. But so this time you changed your perspective.
They weren't. The previous lineup were not friends of mine for a long time. Mm-hmm. they auditioned to be in my band at the beginning of the whole of Inglorious, before Inglorious had a name. They came to an audition because they saw my video on YouTube on The Voice or something. And then these new guys were friends. So it's actually the other way around than what you said. So these guys are people that I know and that I've played with. The only exception is Vinny, the bass player, who is Vinny Collar, who is actually from Brazil. I was recommended by another Brazilian bass player, and as soon as I heard him play and I met him and he was such a nice guy, I knew he was the right guy, because I wanted this time round to be a lot easier emotionally.
Okay.
And now I have that in this new lineup. All 5 people in this band want the band to be the star, and we don't want to be stars ourselves. We want people to love the album and love the band. It's not about egos or about individual people.
All right. Oh, we have your dog. What's the name of the dog?
This is Ozzy.
Ozzy, ok, allora si chiama Ozzy il cane, quindi il perfetto rock, insomma anche il cane ha un nome rock. Okay. About the cover artwork, by the way, Ozzy is beautiful. Great dog.
He knows he's beautiful.
Lui lo sa di essere bello, vuole fare il protagonista. About the cover artwork for the new record, actually, for the previous one, if I'm correct, you used the 2 artists to make it. What about this time? In general, do you give inputs, or does the inspiration, come from the music in those who actually make your artworks? And what's behind the choice this time, of the white horse and the horsewoman that it's on the front cover?
It depends, but it's always my idea, the image of what I want. So usually I tell either the guy who's a tattooist, or I tell the art guy on this album what I wanted. I wanted a woman on a horse. She represents 3 characters inside the album. She represents the red-haired lady, and She Won't Let You Go. She represents Medusa, and she represents the woman in We Will Ride. So I wanted her to be represented on the front cover. And it was my idea, but the art guy is actually the same guy that did our first 2 albums. And he'd done all the artwork in the CD and the vinyl, and it's a really good job. He did a really great job, and it's exactly what I wanted for this album.
What's your answer to those, saying that Inglorious, in the end, is nothing new? And it wasn't meant to be something new, but, it's mainly important for you to do something relevant and inspired than, unnecessarily innovative in a sense. There's always people which is never satisfied, I'll always pointing, and saying, okay, you sound too classic. You don't sound classic. So I know you cannot please everybody, but what's your precise answer, to those that are saying, okay, it's nothing new?
It might not be anything new, but there's not many people my age that can do it as well as my band do it. And I believe that with all of my heart. The reason why classic rock is so great is because you have to have skill to be able to play the guitar in that way. You have to have skill to sing in such a way. And I just don't think there's a lot of people. I can count the singers on one hand under 40 that I think are great in this genre. So there's not a lot of people. And that's what makes it special, is that back maybe in the 70s and 80s, there was hundreds of guys like me and hundreds of guys like Ronnie Romero or Dino Jelicic or these guys. There's not anymore. Everyone sings like, I don't know, like they're crying or like they stepped on something disgusting. It's always, it's not, no one sings properly anymore, and no one plays guitar, because to play guitar like Yngwie Malmsteen, like Slash, it takes hours of practice. And I think that one thing about classic rock, which separates from other genres, is that you have to be good. You have to be good.
About the song Messiah, I read that it was inspired by a TV series that goes under the same name and that you saw in just one day. Is that correct?
Yes. I was obsessed with Netflix during lockdown.
Yeah.
And I think like everyone in the world, right? We were so bored. Everyone just watched loads of TV. So I watched that series in a day. I thought it was really interesting, the idea that it's not necessarily about religion. It's more about the fact that someone is claiming to be something and everyone believed that one person who just said it. He didn't prove it. He just said that he was the Messiah and everyone believed him. Yeah. So it's kind of about the God complex and about how some humans are like sheep, you know, they just follow. Do
you think that, you know, during this lockdown, the fact that everything changed in our lives, maybe in a sense also the way artists can be inspired, you know, in everyday life and express themselves changed and will, you know, remain changed forever in a sense, since this is going to be long, you know, so what do you think?
I hope not, but I think that initially there is going to be a lot of change. And I was definitely inspired by the frustrations I had. And I talked about things on this album that I've never talked about before because I didn't think I needed to. But on this album, I talked a lot about mental health and about depression and about the struggles that we were going through.
Yeah.
And that was new for me because I've never done that before, really. So maybe if we weren't in lockdown, I wouldn't have written about those subjects, you know?
Now we're going to see the Messiah video, which was shot indoor and outdoor. What location is that? It's a beautiful place.
Thank you. I live in a really beautiful part of England called Devon, which is the southwest of England. Mm-hmm. And I am very near the beach. And also on the moors, which is like beautiful countryside. So this was recorded at a very old mansion house, the first half, and then the second half was recorded on the sand dunes of a beach that actually the Ministry of Defence in the UK, so the army in the UK, used as a training ground for people who go to Saudi Arabia or they go to the desert, you know? So, yeah. And also Robbie Williams recorded the Angels music video in the same place, which is kind of
cool. Ok. Allora salutiamo un po' di amici già che ci siamo, visto che stanno scrivendo in tanti, quindi un saluto a Luca, Cristiana, Alex, Giorgio, Stefano, Roberto, Franco, Christian. A lot of people is writing up. I said all the names and Christian is saying Nathan is phenomenal. I saw him live with Inglorious in Verona and he's a phenomenal singer, and they all say that this album seems harder, and you just explained why. Also the inspiration was harder this time. And also let me tell you that Inglorious album is our record of the week at LINEA ROCK, so we've been putting, you know, all the songs on and a lot of people is enjoying it, so really great compliments for it from everybody.
Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone who listens to us and who's been streaming or buying or requesting on the radio. So thank you. It means a lot. And Verona was amazing. What an amazing venue. Rock the Castle.
Right. Hope we will see you there again very soon. So you've worked also with the Trans-Siberian Orchestra, and you are the living proof that from talent shows, some real talent, you know, can emerge indeed. Is that an experience that you consider a part of your main background some way, and that you would suggest in hindsight, you know, or it's something that it was just, you know, there and it's in the past? You know, classic artists used to consider talent shows not the real thing, you know, not the place to pay your dues. So what's your point on that?
The world has changed since my heroes were famous, you know. So in order for people now to get a big following, the best way for me was to do it on TV. It's either YouTube or TV. And the good thing about TV was that when I left TV, I had a mailing list of 20,000 people in the UK that I took to my frontiers in Italy, and we said, look, I've got this many followers, this many people like my voice, this many people are ready to buy something with my voice on. And it made it an easier decision for them because they knew that there was already an audience for me waiting to buy things. Sure. And I also think that either you can be the guy who sits at home complaining that the people on TV who aren't always as good as you are doing great things, or you can be the dude on the TV. And I would rather be the dude on the TV than be the miserable dude sat at home like...
Okay.
You know?
Yeah, that makes sense. It's perfectly clear. What red wine are you sipping first? Can you tell us?
It's not Italian, I'm so sorry.
Okay. Damn.
I'm so sorry. I have Pinot Grigio to finish after this glass. But this is an Argentinian Malbec.
Okay. How did you keep your voice in shape, you know, during the lockdown? Any different kind, you know, of practice you discovered since you had no live shows to keep your instrument warm and trained? And so this is a very different scenario. Were you singing at home every day, or actually your neighbors are happy, or what?
I'm very lucky here. We actually have no neighbors. Okay. So our house is in the middle of a field on top of a hill. So the nearest house is maybe 1 mile away.
Okay.
So no one can hear me even when I'm screaming, which is great. But I have a piano here.
Yeah.
I teach singing in lockdown. So the only times I've really been singing is when I recorded the album, and also when I teach vocals from home on Zoom. But apart from that, I've enjoyed the rest. My voice needed to rest. I've sung professionally and toured since I was 15, 16 years old. Mm-hmm. It's the only job I've ever had. So to me, it's actually been quite nice for my voice to relax and like not have to stress about singing high every day. I've enjoyed it, and I've enjoyed spending time with my family and not actually thinking about being a singer all the time, because a singer's job is the hardest in the band because your instrument is in your body, you know. Sure. You can't put it in a box. So I've enjoyed the rest.
You partially told us, you know, before about this, but what attracts you so much about the 70s rock, about classic rock? So you said, you know, that you have to be good and you have to know how to sing and play. But in the very first place, what did attracted you to it?
I discovered my voice before I discovered rock. So when I was like 11, 12, and I discovered I could sing, my next challenge was finding something that was harder to sing than the stuff I was singing, which maybe at 11 was Robbie Williams or something. Okay. You know?
Okay.
Like, I was looking for that thing that was harder for me to sing, that I had to push myself and really practice, and that was rock. So it became all of those singers in rock I used to listen to and think, that is amazing. That's so much harder than anyone else is able to do. And I used to think David Coverdale, Glenn Hughes, Paul Rodgers, Freddie Mercury, Dio, all these guys I used to listen to and think, this is inhuman. Like, they're singing like women high, but they sound like the most badass men. And
yeah.
I just thought it was amazing, and that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to sing rock at first because I loved I love the way that the men sounded. I just think it's amazing.
You gave us a lot of names, but which are your very first memories of rock and roll? I mean, your Ed Sullivan moment, which was, when you decided, yes, this is what I'm going to do in my life?
I think it was realizing that Freddie Mercury walked the earth. I remember thinking he was so amazing. And for everything, songwriting, performance, charisma, voice, he was just a star. And I remember thinking, wow, I've never seen anything like him before. Also, I love that he was extravagant and he was camp and he was flamboyant. And I love all of those things. I can't swear, but he didn't care what anyone thought of him. And I think that is what rock and roll is. Rock and roll is an attitude which was very much alive in the 70s and 80s, which now, if you act like, people hate you. But in the 70s and 80s, it was like, wow, this is amazing. He's absolutely crazy. He I don't know, takes drugs and goes to parties and he drinks lots, and he was just a crazy character, but he was a beautiful person, and he wrote some of the best songs that ever existed. So, yeah, it was definitely that moment I discovered Freddie. And
si è frizzato Nathan. You're back. Okay. And do you remember the very first live show that you saw?
The very first live show. Probably someone really embarrassing.
That you don't want to tell us.
I don't want to tell you because it's so bad.
No, please tell us.
I went with a girl I was seeing, and we were 13, 14, and we went to see a band called Steps.
Okay, I remember them. Okay, so boy band, all right. But you were 13, so never mind. And do you remember the last show that you saw before lockdown?
Yeah, it was amazing. I saw one of my heroes, Alanis Morissette, and I flew to Amsterdam, and I was in the second row in this theatre, and she sung acoustically the whole of Jagged Little Pill album.
Wow.
And I think it was nearly $1,000 a seat.
Wow. And you were a guest?
No.
Oh, no. So you purchased the ticket. Wow.
That's how much I love her. So
wow.
I remember sitting there and I cried for the first two songs because it was like that album, her voice is just perfect to me. It's the perfect album, I think.
Two questions in one. Okay, so you always talk about David Coverdale as one of your main influences. Do you remember the very first time you heard, Whitesnake or David Coverdale, and when, where were you, and the exact sensation that you had when you heard him sing? And the second part is Giuseppe is writing us, is there any famous band that actually wanted you to join and you refused in the last, maybe 4 or 5 years, since you're one, of the main voices in hard rock? And as you said, your classic and classics is really rare, in young singers.
So first question, I remember hearing Here I Go Again when I was probably 14, 15 years old. And I couldn't believe that his voice went from, I don't know where I'm going, to then, yeah, in the middle. My mind was blown. I couldn't believe that it was real. So that was the moment I fell in love with David's voice. And then I discovered everything David. I discovered all of Whitesnake. I discovered his work with Jimmy Page. I discovered his work with on the North Winds album, which is one of my favorite albums of all time. David Coverdale solo North Winds is just beautiful. His singing is like, he sings so from the heart. So that was the first time. And then famous bands, I'm not going to say because I've had too much wine, vino. And I had meetings about some bands and stuff, and obviously I'm doing a band right now with 3 guys from Whitesnake, which is really cool. And then there's also talk about another project right now that someone showed me 2 days ago, so maybe I will have more news for you later in the year, but not right now.
Okay. But there's something in the can. So Nathan, last question for tonight. Next projects. I mean, you just told us that there's something new in the can, but I know it's difficult, nowadays to make long projects because we don't know what the future will be in the music business in the next year, at least. But I don't know, maybe you are already planning, what will be next. Maybe a stream from Mars, I don't know. Something like that. Are you thinking, about the future, or you are living, just the present for the release of the record?
I'm enjoying the release and the reaction that people are having to this album, because in all of our history, I've never had this reaction to an album. I haven't seen a bad review. And all the big kind of places in the UK gave us great reviews, so I'm really happy. The other thing that's kind of cool is we started recording a new Inglorious album a week ago.
Oh, wow. Already?
So that's kind of cool. And it's very different. It's not something, I don't want to ruin it, but it's not something that's, I can't say it without ruining it.
It's unexpected. Okay, let's say that.
It's unexpected, but it's also something that we have been asked to do. We're a band that have famously done quite a few covers.
Okay, so I get it. All right.
So we feel maybe it's time to show people that side of this band.
Now we're closing the show with the Medusa video, which is very particular because it's been shot in the studio. And I guess, and I hope that you were able to work on the new music that way, the classic way, being in the same room and writing song. Is that exactly how it went? It wasn't just for the video, right?
We were in the studio together, kind of, but we were only allowed to be in the room one at a time. So maybe 2 if we were lucky because of COVID. So we tried to keep it very separate because our producer wanted to make sure we were socially distanced and we were abiding by COVID rules. So that was the only thing that was different. Usually we'd be all in the same room, but it worked and it sounds great. And I'm really happy with the outcome of this album, considering that we recorded it in the top of lockdown in the UK.
And the producer did a fantastic job, by the way, because the sound is really amazing. It's Romesh, his name, right?
Yeah, Romesh Gogandola.
Okay.
And he's produced bands like Bring Me the Horizon, For My Valentine, Funeral
Motorhead also Motorhead. Yes. Thanks, Nathan, for your time for this interview.
Grazie mille. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you for speaking to me. This is Medusa that I co-wrote with Joel Hoekstra from Whitesnake on the new Inglorious album, We Will Ride.
Ciao, Nathan. Thank you very much. Enjoy.
Ciao.